advancing towards our land, and we are taking it. We are not...
Zimbabwe's war veterans are on the warpath again, 20 years after liberating their country from white minority rule. These former freedom fighters say they are spearheading the final stage of their struggle, seizing white-owned farmland.
There is political liberation, there is economic liberation, and we cannot have an economic liberation without land. Land is the basis for everything.
Despite promises made at independence in 1980, land redistribution in Zimbabwe has been slow. 2 decades later, thousands remained landless, among them hundreds of war veterans, while about 4,000 white farmers control the country's rich and most productive commercial agricultural land. The war veterans' action was prompted by last month's referendum that rejected a proposed new constitution that would have allowed President Mugabe to seize white-owned farmland without compensation. In the past few weeks, up to 700 white-owned commercial farms around the country have been occupied by angry veterans and other landless peasant farmers.
We are at war for land, and that is very clear.
Although Zimbabwe's High Court declared the occupations illegal, no action has been taken against the protesters. President Mugabe has even come out in support of their action, and his government has vowed to challenge the court's ruling. This has encouraged more occupations. Many here believe the current crisis is being used by the government to score political points ahead of Zimbabwe's upcoming parliamentary elections. While the occupations have been mostly peaceful, there have been isolated violent incidents, including the harassment of our CNN crew.
I don't care who you.
20-year-old Ian Ellsworth, who is managing his family's farm, says he was threatened with violence if he did not cooperate with the veterans. He watches helplessly as hundreds of settlers move onto his land.
Nervous. I'm feeling very nervous about the farm, but what can you do?
The mood here among the war veterans and the others who have joined them in the farm occupations is one of defiance and determination. They say they can no longer wait for the land promised to them 20 years ago when Zimbabwe achieved independence.
People of Zimbabwe are now sick and tired for 20 years. Yes. I mean, without land. We have been very patient enough. Our forefathers were driven away from this area. The whites invaded the land of Zimbabwe. We are now taking back our land.
Yeah, we are taking it.
Yeah, you take it, but I am not giving you permission.
But many white farmers are resisting, like father and son Piers and Derek Nickel. When 300 occupiers moved onto Derek's farm, demanding that it be handed over to them, they refused. Even though there was disagreement, both sides were able to present their views amicably. The war veterans and their followers are still camped out in a field. The standoff continues.
Our family's been on this particular farm from about 1939. We've been in Africa for about 150 years.
3 generations of endeavor have gone into this land, and I don't believe it's a very easy thing just to let some political rhetoric or whatever just say we're coming to take your land. I don't think that's a very fair sort of approach to the subject at all.
But the farmers say they understand and support the need for genuine land reform in Zimbabwe and are prepared to work with the government and the war veterans through their union to help resolve the issue.
I have no intention to give anything to anybody. I'm prepared to listen to arguments or discuss that through the goodwill and through some talking and negotiating or along those lines, it can be resolved. There is bountiful land throughout this country, and with the right gearing, I'm sure that it can be done and it can be successful, where both parties, commercial farmers and themselves, can live again in unity. And that's what we want.
In the meantime, emotions on both sides continue to run high. The farmers feeling besieged, the occupiers empowered. Despite the fact there is disagreement as to how Zimbabwe's land should be redistributed, and the fact that the current standoff has raised tensions around the country, all sides agree that it is an issue that needs to be urgently and finally resolved. Back to you, Jim.
All right, thanks, Bob. Well, police in Zimbabwe say the situation could explode if it is not handled with great care and political astuteness. In an exclusive interview, we asked President Robert Mugabe about the conflict and his role in it.
The occupation by the war veterans is a matter that is of concern to all of us for various reasons. On our part, as long as the occupation is peaceful and there is no real seizure of any property on the land or any violence, then it amounts to a mere demonstration. And to the extent that it is a mere peaceful demonstration, we will not intervene. If it becomes violent, we will intervene. This is what we have said. But obviously, all of us are eager that some settlement, some compromise is reached in due course, and this is what we are trying to work out at the moment.
The government has encouraged this occupation, hasn't it?
The government has not intervened, and if that is encouragement, well, let it be. But we haven't actually organized it in that physical sense. We haven't.
Mr. President, the political opposition is calling for you to step down, saying you're promoting this land crisis to distract from the economy, the war in the Congo, all in order to bolster your party before upcoming parliamentary elections.
It's absolute nonsense. It's the usual opposition rubbish. And they will obviously reach for anything in order to build up opposition to the present government. Of course, there won't be any resignation. There is a constitution that we observe, and that constitution gives the president 6 years as his term of office. And there is therefore no question of anyone backing down because the opposition is saying so. They are not an opposition yet in the formal sense. They have got to prove to the country that, in fact, the people recognize them. The people haven't recognized them in any valid way, and we can't listen to them as a formal opposition yet. Let them go to election. Let the people vote for them, and then we'll respect them as an opposition.
Mr. President, would you ever give the order for the war veterans to leave that land they have occupied, or is the die cast? Is this a battle that Robert Mugabe, an independence fighter, means to carry on to the end?
No, I told you at the beginning that we did not order the war veterans to occupy the land. They did it entirely on their own. But we can talk to them, and we can advise them. The issue of the land is not their concern alone. It's our concern together. They, the communal areas, the people of this country, the party and the government are all parties that are concerned about the land question in this country. And we have to settle it together. And we will settle it together. I don't think there will be that chaos that you're talking about. And the international community need not fear that there will be chaos. But what will bring chaos is an attempt to implement the decision of the court without the executive, without us ordering the forces. And the forces are allowed to get onto the lands that are occupied and try to use the power that they have without instructions from us. Naturally, that would be very, very chaotic. And it will be resisted anyway by the war veterans. And if the executive has no role to play, as the courts have ruled, then obviously there will be chaos in the country. But we won't stand by and allow chaos. And I can assure you, sooner or later there will be order, and we will be back to legality.
Now, on balance, President Mugabe has come under fire from a number of sources, including British Foreign Minister, Office Minister Peter Hain, for not enforcing that court ruling that ordered the